As the hours of the jury's deliberation ticked on, I had to leave to make it to my city council meeting at 7 p.m. I left Tony at the courthouse to take the verdict. The jury found in our favor just as my meeting was starting on the other side of town. After the meeting, Tony and I met in the downtown Champaign for a few celebratory drinks. As we were walking to the Esquire bar, I saw a couple of young reporters I knew at a table near the window of the bar. We walked in, and sitting with them was Cynthia. I had a few whiskeys, and I left around 11 p.m. Cynthia, her colleagues, and Tony shut the place down that night. Like I said, I'm responsible for the whole thing.
And before we all left that night, because I was there too, I remember Cynthia invited Tony to her birthday party. It was just a few days later, and Cynthia told Tony it started at 9 o'clock. And of course, Tony showed up at 9:10 because Tony's an idiot. And it was just him, Cynthia, and 3 of her friends until the next person showed up an hour later. Awkward.
Such a Cynthia word, awkward. But then a few days later, at a going away party for a friend, Cynthia and Tony met again. The timeline gets a little blurry at this point, but for everyone's sake, suffice it to say, Cynthia and Tony were becoming an item.
But then something happened. Cynthia got offered a job in Peoria, about 90 miles away. It's a good job, the nightside female anchor. She decided to leave the station. We all worked together. We all worked at together. And she told Tony about it late one night at Radio Maria. Go figure, another bar. They both wondered where that ship was going.
Fast forward to late May 2011. Cynthia and Tony are having breakfast at Urbana's finest dining establishment, the Apple Dumpling. It's a greasy cafeteria plate kind of place, fried poultry, and a hello darling from the grandmother waitress. They walked out to a thunderstorm in an empty afternoon. What to do?
Tony said that if they just kept driving, they could be in New Orleans by sunrise. Cyn brought him back down to earth and said she had to anchor the news the next day. So Tony suggested St. Louis instead. They swung by Cynthia's apartment where she packed for the overnight trip in about 6 minutes. Okay, now Tony was really impressed.
4 hours after leaving the Apple Dumpling, they were sipping free drinks by the pool in St. Louis. After all the free booze was gone, they headed down to the landing for some music, dancing, and food.
On their walk there, Cynthia told Tony that she didn't want things to end when she moved to Peoria. Tony agreed that they were having too much fun together just to leave it all behind.
That was the beginning of 6 months of commuting back and forth between Champaign and Peoria for both of them. Tony worked from 8 to 5, but Cynthia worked from 2 to 11 p.m. So when Cynthia would come to Champaign after work, she would arrive pretty late. They would usually go to Radio Maria when she got there. And when Tony went to Peoria, he would have to leave by 6 a.m. to get back to work in Urbana. But they managed to see each other 5 or 6 nights a week.
The work they put in then became the glue that held them together. After 6 months in Peoria, Cynthia returned to Champaign to anchor the morning show at WCIA, the station she had left as a reporter just 6 months earlier. She moved in with Tony and brought all of her stuff.
Well, Tony was prepared. He built her a closet the size of a small bedroom so she could keep all the real closet for her shoes.
In March of 2012, Tony and Cynthia went to Key West, Florida, at the time of their lives. And as they stood in the hotel pool one night with a bottle of wine, Tony told Cynthia that he was going to marry her someday. They came back to Key West promising each other they would return. Then, on June 8th, 2012, Wrecker, the yellow Labrador Retriever, joined the family. He has since become one of the greatest joys of their lives, and they wish he could be here with us today. But if he was, everyone would be wearing a thin fur coat and a badge of slobber from the one and only Wrecker Decker Deck.
In September 2012, Cynthia and Tony were at the wedding of their good friend Katie and Wyatt. During the reception, when Cynthia was on the dance floor, Tony pulled me aside, told me he was my daughter and ask for my blessing, which was really. I gave it, and Tony was now beyond the point of no return. But I think he was relieved to have the go-ahead. In fact, I know he was relieved.
He bought a ring and brought it to Chicago in early December. He and Cynthia went up for what she thought was just an overnight trip because Tony had a meeting. Coincidentally, Cynthia's parents and her brother Jim, his wife Jen, were in Chicago that weekend for a conference of their own.
Thursday night, Lou and I joined Cynthia and Tony for dinner at Chestnut to celebrate my birthday. Tony was keeping his plans to himself and hoping he didn't lose the ring before the next morning.
Friday morning, as he and Cynthia were walking downtown, Tony stopped and dropped to one knee on Michigan Avenue Bridge over the Chicago River and asked Cynthia to marry him. She said yes, and the ring never once fell into the river. After the proposal happened, they called us as we were leaving the hotel to tell us the great news. They walked over to the Hyatt, and we brought them their first drink as an engaged couple.
That night, Cynthia and Tony invited us to a fundraiser at the Cubby Bear in Wrigleyville. It was hilarious because my wife Jessie had just been asking me when I thought Tony would propose. When Cynthia walked into our apartment with the big rock on her finger, we thought that we were seriously being pumped.
Everything leading up to this big day has been a cakewalk. Weddings look pretty easy, if you ask me. Cynthia and Tony have asked me to thank you all for coming. They are thrilled you could all make it, and they are looking forward to a great day. So, on with the show.
Well, so you've now heard one version of the story. Many points you can check out later at the reception. It has come to the time, the moment in the ceremony when we asked the bride and groom to declare their intentions at this moment.
I promise we'll always have a dog if you want one. Because our boy Wrecker is just the greatest. You thought we should get a dog, and I didn't think so. As it turned out, you were right, and I was wrong. I promise that's the last time that'll ever happen. I promise I'll always try to make you laugh. I promise when you do, I'll love you a little more. When you feel like dancing, you'll always have a partner, and when you don't, you'll have wine. I promise to always make you my #1 priority, unless I'm hungry, in which case I'll do my very best. The road ahead is going to be long and winding, and along the way I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. But I promise I'll try to make new ones rather than just repeating old ones. I promise throughout our lives to always climb to the hilltops with you to see what lies beyond. I promise never to grow complacent by submitting to the crippling belief that a problem can't be solved, or worse, that it isn't worth trying. Cynthia, I promise to be honest, because you alone can know everything. We are going to have a great life together. We are going to travel and cook and raise a family, and maybe one day I'll even have a truck with power windows and locks. But the nature of life is such that the sun-filled skies will on occasion yield to darkness, and in those times I will be there with you. When you are sick, I will take care of you. When you are scared, I will comfort you. And when you are sad, I will hold you. But I will endeavor always to make you happy. Before I met you, I was already the luckiest man I had ever known. After that, I know I will never meet a luckier one. Cynthia, you are the single greatest thing that has ever happened to me, and if God made anything better, he kept it for himself. I love you, and I always will.
Tony, you have brought so much joy and happiness to my life, and I promise you that I'll never forget how much better my life is with you by my side. I promise that I will love you for no more than the person you are, that I will cherish you, that I will put you first, that I will put our family first. I promise that I will chase your dreams with you, that I will be adventurous with you, that I will feed your curiosity, even if that means our date night becomes a night of us watching construction projects across the street from the restaurant. I promise that I will always fight fair, I will never keep score, and I'll forgive quickly if I'm ever mad. I promise to admit when I'm wrong, but I promise to keep you humble when you are right. I promise to like you as much as I love promise to date you, even though we'll soon be married. Speaking of going on dates, I can't promise that when I say I'll be ready in 5 minutes, that it'll actually be 5 minutes until I'm ready, but I do promise you that I try. I promise you that I will always work on my own imperfections, like patience, which means I will listen to all of your stories from beginning to end, no matter how long and no matter how detailed I think they should be. I promise to always laugh with you and to help you find joy in life. I promise to be your advisor when you have problems, your sounding board when you have ideas, and I promise to be your best friend and your wife. But above everything else, I promise that I will love you forever. And I promise you that through my thoughts, my words, and my actions, you will always know how much you are loved.
And so you have declared your intentions before this community. Do you, Tony, take Cynthia to be your wife, to have and to hold, for better and for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish from this day forward until death do you part?
I do.
Cynthia, do you take Tony to be your husband, to have and to hold, for better and for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, from this day forward until death do you part?
I do.
Would the best man step forward to the rings? And Tony, as you place your ring on Cynthia's finger, would you repeat after me? Cynthia, take this ring.
Cynthia, take this ring
As a sign of my love and fidelity.
as a sign of my love and fidelity,
Today and every day of our lives.
today and every day of our lives.
And Cynthia, as you place your ring on Tony's finger, repeat after me. Tony, take this ring
Tony, take this ring
as a sign of my love and fidelity.
as a sign of my love and fidelity
Today and every day of our lives.
today and every day of our lives.
Tony, you may kiss the bride.
You did it!